and Musk. And Musk, first of all, years ago, you'll remember, said AI could be the end of humanity. Well, as we know it, that's the idea. And so he's positioned himself early as the skeptic of AI. The problem is that all he's done ever since is roll out more and more AI. And first of all, the electric car, the electric vehicle agenda is, of course, nothing to do with the environment. That's all a scam. That's all a hoax. It's simply that they eventually, and it's becoming more and more obvious, they want the vast majority of people not to have a car at all, not to have a petrol or diesel car, where they can get into the vehicle and just drive it pretty much where they want. They don't want that. They want autonomous vehicles where you do have a vehicle, like autonomous taxis, etc., which Tesla's now says it's going to roll out. Others have done before, because you can't have an autonomous vehicle run by a computer that's run by diesel and petrol. It's very, very difficult and complex, and so that's not the way they're going. What they want is an electric vehicle where the whole thing is electrical and the computer runs it. So now you get into your car, and at the moment, and you can say, okay, as long as I've got the money for the fuel, I can drive pretty much where I want. But the idea is that great chunks of land, like in America, for instance, is going to be denied to you. And how does that work? Because the computer won't take you there. The computers will, in the vehicles, will be firewalled off from taking you where authorities don't want you to go. And who has been the guy who's been the real frontline sales pitcher for electric vehicles? Elon Musk. And then SpaceX. SpaceX is extremely relevant to what I call, I've been warning about for decades now, that the plan for the hive mind. This is where, going back to what Kurzweil said, the human race is connected to artificial intelligence via this, quote, cloud, and it's dictating the thought patterns and the emotional responses of everyone, ultimately. That's the idea. And so if you're going to create this cloud of electromagnetic, technologically generated electromagnetic fields, then you can only do it to a certain extent with 5G towers in urban areas, etc., and 6G, 7G to come. To hit every inch of the planet, you've got to do it from space. And so we have SpaceX leading the putting into orbit, low orbit, of these satellites that are beaming this electromagnetic field at the Earth on the basis of phone communication and communications in general. Also through this Starlink network, which is now thousands and thousands of satellites with tens of thousands in the process of being put into orbit. Musk is now providing a special version of that for the Pentagon and government. Now, this is a guy that the government, the authorities are supposed to, it's like garlic to a vampire. But if you look at his companies, they exist because of massive government subsidies and contracts. And SpaceX is a classic example. SpaceX is ostensibly, on the face of it, a private company, but actually it exists because of NASA and the Pentagon. And the story is pretty much the official story, according to this CIA guy called Michael Griffin, that he was flying to Russia with Musk to try to negotiate a deal for intercontinental ballistic missiles. I mean, go figure. It didn't happen. And on the plane back, Musk announces he's going to start SpaceX. Michael Griffin was offered a job with SpaceX, but he didn't take it because he has a very relevant background. He's got a CIA background, and he was offered the job instead of head of a company called InQtel or IQT, which is the technological seed funder of the CIA. It picks up startups and other companies that are providing technology, surveillance technology, data processing technology that suit the agenda of the CIA, which is an expression, ultimately, if you go deep enough, of this global cult. And just as an aside, one of the companies that InQtel seed funded to get it going is one called Palantir, which is co-founded by Peter Thiel, who is very much in this coterie group that circled the wagons around Trump with Elon Musk, etc. And so Griffin goes on and becomes head of InQtel, and then he was offered another job as head of NASA. And it was when he took over that massive contracts started to be handed to SpaceX, and they've gone on ever since. It's one of the prime sources, rocket sources of NASA now. And you look at this other company he's got called Neuralink, and Neuralink is obviously trying to put chips in the brain and taking a bit of your skull away and putting these probes in. And of course, that's the Stone Age compared with how they're really doing it. But what Musk is one of his prime functions is to sell a concept. Like he sold the whole concept of electric cars through Tesla, and he sells the concept of using humans with artificial intelligence. So he was asked very relevantly in an interview I saw by a guy asking a very sensible question. How many people are going to want a bit of their skull taken away to have one of your probes stuck in? And he said, oh, well, you might not have to do it like that. You might be able to go in through the veins. And so you look at all these things, and then just to finish the point, then you come around to Twitter X, and you say, well, why did they allow him to buy it if he's a free speech absolutist, which he's not? I'll give you some examples of that. But so why would they do it? Well, before he bought Twitter X. Well, actually, I say he bought it. There's a lot of other people, like 19 other shareholders in the holding company of Twitter X, which go into Saudi Arabia and Qatar, real free speech absolutist people. But before he officially bought it, there were people, well, me, and I've continued, but and others too, like Whitney Webb and others. But there were more people, shall we say, that were looking at Musk and his companies and saying, hold on a minute, he's ticking all the boxes of this World Economic Forum and all that stuff. And the moment he bought Twitter X and started letting a few people back on, and the whole free speech absolutist image started to be promoted, that stopped in that center core of the, I say, hijacked alternative media, which gets all the algorithmic support and the funding, etc. He's not being called out anymore for the blatant way that he is advancing this agenda through his companies. And also, those people are saying that human-caused climate change is a hoax. Absolutely right. But if you look at his comments over the years, he's in favor of these things to so-called mitigate human-caused climate change, like a carbon tax and carbon trading. He's all in favor of that. He's in favor of the universal basic income, which is a massive trap being planned for the human race when they've crashed the economy and AI has taken the great majority of the jobs. So, he is a real Trojan horse, a Pied Piper. And just to finish the point here, if you have an agenda where you want to get to a point where you're fusing humans with AI, you've got basically two major groups you've got to convince. You've got the so-called left in politics and the wokers. You've got to convince them. Well, they're pretty much a pushover in terms of the sales pitch of hard sell, which is we'll be gods, we'll be superhuman if we fuse with AI. But then you've got this other group, which is basically the MAGA and those that have gravitated to Trump, who actually don't want that. They're very skeptical about it and very concerned about it. And, again, the alternative media has been warning for a long time that actually the plan is to fuse humans with AI, and it's not for the benefit of humans. So along comes Trump and Musk. And Musk, first of all, years ago, you'll remember, said AI could be the end of humanity. Well, as we know it, that's the idea. And so he's positioned himself early as the skeptic of AI. The problem is that all he's done ever since is roll out more and more AI. And then he comes out with a crucial statement. I call this designer manipulation. You've got a certain way. You can't Pied Piper two groups of different mentalities the same way. Because you might be successful with one, but you ain't going to be successful with the other. So you have to pitch your manipulation to the target mentality. So somehow the so-called right in politics, or the MAGAs, the pushback as I call them, have got to be brought on board. And the statement he made was that AI is inevitable, and it's going to become more and more intelligent until it passes the point where it overrides human intelligence. And if we don't fuse with AI, then humans are going to die out. And that word inevitable is very powerful. It's a very powerful mind manipulation technique, because when you've got one group that's accepting it, but the other group is saying, we don't want this, then you to dilute that resistance, we don't want this, you convince them that it's inevitable. And once you convince them of that, they go into another mode of thinking. Instead of we're going to stop this, it's well, how do we mitigate the effects of it? And of course, there's Elon Musk. Oh, well, I'm skeptical about it. I want regulation. I'm on your side, but it's inevitable. And the point being that the end outcome of the hard sell and the soft sell is the same: humans using AI. And what I would say to people, you might seize the rhetoric that people want to hear, as we did during the election campaign. You might hear it in the Trump administration, but words are easy. What's the action? And I would say to people, watch like a hawk with a telescope the direction of travel in this Trump administration in terms of AI and the fusion of AI with humans. Because look at all those people: Musk, Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, who's had his political career funded by Peter Thiel. He's a business associate of Peter Thiel. Vivek Ramaswamy, business associate of Peter Thiel. You've got this guy, Mark Andreessen, who's blocked me on Twitter X. And they're all like in this AI coterie around Trump. And they're all looking at this for this agenda of the AI human fusion.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like we're watching 2016 all over again. I remember watching this, even about a month ago, not knowing exactly who was going to win the 2020 or 2024 election. And it felt like, to me, the Fabians were sort of in charge either way, right? They knew what was going to happen if Kamala was going to win, and they knew what was going to happen if Donald Trump was going to win. But to me, they're kind of chaos agents, right? So if Kamala Harris, I felt like they could have tried to do the thing back in 2016, where last minute at 3 a.m. they were going to get the little, and then have her come in and sweep in. And that would have caused a great amount of chaos. But it felt like, to me, the Fabian win would have been Donald Trump, where they get that nice slow creep still. And
yeah, well, that's very good.
I was just going to say that this has now allowed the right wing to go back to sleep, like back in 2016. Anytime you're going to get that big creep on the right against civil liberties, guns, any of that stuff, it has to go through the right. If we're going to have a war with Iran, Donald Trump has to be the one in charge. And now you have Elon Musk in basically the cabinet, deciding things that are going to happen in government. And it's absolutely crazy.
You are so spot on. One of the things that I've been trying to get across over all these decades is that this network, this global cult, if you like, is stupid. It's stupid in the sense of anyone that wants to control people on the scale that they do is a moron in terms of, you might say, spiritual enlightenment. But what they are is absolutely brilliant at manipulating human perception and predicting that if they provide stimulus A, they'll get mass reaction B. And so when you look at the world in black and white, this is obviously happening because of that, then often it's not. It's often much more subtle, with much more nuance than that. And so if you look at the election in 2020, it was obviously scammed. It was obviously rigged. I mean, blatant. The question is, however, why? Because Trump was obviously going to get in. So why? It's like okay, the shooting of Trump, as they said in at the rally, it was clearly allowed to happen. The question is, though, why? And it's the why that takes you into potential. I'm not making definite statements here, but it takes you into the potential of actually seeing it in a different way. So let's look at it from a perception manipulation point of view, which is this is the stadium in which the conspiracy is played out: control of human perception, thus control of human behavior. So Trump gets in 2016, and he wins in 2020, and now he's out as we speak. He'd be gone, and quite possibly a Democrat would be in, because we wouldn't have had 4 years of Democrat catastrophe to get people to vote a different way. So if you are then, and this is what's coming, and you're absolutely right when you talk about the Trump supporters giving him a free ride and Musk a free ride. That's the whole idea. This is the whole perceptional scam that's going on that so many don't seem able to see in the so-called alternative media. You would have a Democrat president, quite possibly, pushing on towards this whole AI human fusion agenda. Because Kurzweil talked about 2030 being the year when it would really get underway. It's already happening, but really underway. And 2030 is a year that is a real target year for many of these different agendas to come to fruition. There's no accident that this United Nations agenda is called Agenda 2030 for taking over the control of everything and all the basics of life. It's a real target year, 2030. So when Trump comes in now in January 2025, he's going to go to 2029, and there won't be another president until 2030. We've just got a guy in here called Keir Starmer, who is cult to his DNA, why he's turning Britain into a basket case in this very short time. And he's just come in, and he'll go up to 2029 as well, 5-year terms they have here. And so the people are being put into position now, and Musk, of course, and all these AI people in Silicon Valley that are all around Trump, they're all positioning themselves for this crucial period between 2025 and 2030, because blitzkrieg is coming, what I call emotional perceptual blitzkrieg. They're going to throw so much at us in this period that people are going to just get their head around one happening, and suddenly something else is happening. This is what they call future shock. It's a mass mind control technique, making people subordinate through and acquiesce through the sheer volume of emotional strikes. So they're all in place. Now imagine, as I say, that in this period now, a Democrat was coming in. All the MAGAs would be, and the alternative media, would be pushing back on a Democrat president, pushing towards the fusion of AI and humans. They would, because of their political perception, they'll be pushing back on it. But as you rightly point out a few minutes ago, now Trump's in, and Musk, the free speech hero, a good billionaire, you're going to have that pushback muted. We're starting to see already that he's putting into his government people who have 100% allegiance to Israel, one after the other in the last 2-3 days. And so when you get deeper into this, you find that a key area of this global cult is something called the Sabbateans. Some people also call them the Sabbatean Frankists. And these are a cult within the Jewish community that actually hates Jews. I mean, they are an inversion of Jewishness in so many ways. And so these Sabbateans are being put into these positions of political power. I mean, look at the Biden administration. It's extraordinary, the major positions of power that on the face of it were given to Jewish people, but you go deeper and it's this Sabbatean cult that's behind it. You look at the Trump administration, you see the same. You look at the Obama administration, my goodness, I wrote a book at the time which listed all the Jewish people involved in the major positions of financial control in America under Obama. It was absolutely, it was almost laughable. They covered every single position to control the economy. And, the number of Jewish people in America compared with the population is about 2%. Globally, it's tiny. It's like 0.17% or less. And so that's the Jewish people ratio. Now squeeze that to the Sabbateans operating within them and using Jewish people as a cover, and you're looking at even fewer people. And this period where they are wanting to create, as part of this perceptual blitzkrieg, global conflict, and the trigger, which I've been pointing out for years and years, way back, is Iran, to trigger a conflict and between the West and Russia, China, etc. This is all building up towards that, because you've got these people that want to impose their will, shall we say, on Iran, all being kind of added to this Trump administration in the last few days. So you can see the way it's going. And the Trump supporters who got so excited, I do understand why, given what's happened under Biden, and what many of them know is the agenda, but they're going to be very disappointed because, as they used to say when I was traveling America in the 90s, it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government still gets in.
I've got a plasma question for you, because I'm really fascinated by this take you've got in your new trilogy. And one thing that I'd like to understand, I guess, in your words, is there a difference between plasma in general versus programmed plasma? Like, is there a good and a bad, or does it all kind of flow from the same stream?
Well, I think plasma is the foundation of the simulation. And so if you think of the plasma base, and then you create electromagnetic, because the thing about plasma is that it's the almost perfect medium for electricity and electromagnetism. And I came across this a long time ago when I was researching an area of scientific research outside the mainstream, of course, which is called the electric universe, or the Thunderbolt project. And I would recommend that people go and have a look at that, because they have been showing for a very long time that the universe is actually an electromagnetic, certainly on one level, phenomenon. And so you've got this perfect medium of plasma, and on that medium, through that medium, you can create these electrical worlds, because when you look at Wi-Fi, what is it? It's an information field. Radiation can hold information, and so if people think of this simulated reality, this layer that's been laid as a fake reality over this prime reality, and through the body we are connected to it, you can very, very accurately, it's not even symbolize it, it's very close to true, with a Wi-Fi field. And so a Wi-Fi field is a radiation field of information, and the computer decodes that information into a completely different form on the screen. And when people say, what is the internet? And they'll say, well, it's this, that, and the other. Yes, it all is. It's pictures and words and graphics, but only on the screen of the computer. Everywhere else, it's a Wi-Fi field or electrical circuits. And the same process with what I've been calling since the 1990s, this biological computer, the body, is how we are manifesting this reality. It's a Wi-Fi field of encoded information, and it's interactive. So it's affecting us, and we're affecting it by our perceptions, our consciousness, our energetic projections that come from our state of being and our thoughts and our emotions. And if you can hold people in a perceptual limitation where they are operating within the same perceptual range as the simulation, then they're having no impact upon the simulation. The simulation and they are the same. They are interacting. So one's not affected. Well, one's affecting the other in terms of the Wi-Fi fields affecting the consciousness, but the consciousness is not affecting the Wi-Fi field because it's operating in the same realm as the Wi-Fi field in terms of frequency. When you expand your awareness and you break out of this programming, what we call awakening, you start to generate a different frequency information based on your expanding awareness. And then you do start affecting the simulation. You do start changing it. And so what the body is doing, and this is mainstream science, it's through the five senses, it's locking into the frequency level of the simulation Wi-Fi field. And the five senses are then decoding that into electrical information. And they send it to the brain electrically, and the brain then decodes that into the reality we think is external to us when it's all going on in here. And through the body, the biological computer, we are being presented unknowingly through the decoding of this Wi-Fi field into what appears to be this reality, like the computer screen. We're being presented with a reality we think is real, but actually it's just a decoded, basically computer software program. And the electrical electromagnetic level of it, that we interact with it, is actually playing out through this plasma field. So, you know, this is the point. When I talk about other dimensions of reality, particularly one they call in esoteric circles the astral, which is really close to this one. And you think, well, where's that? Well, you're looking at it because the frequency band that we can see is absolutely tiny. What this, and that's not an accident. If you want to control and manipulate the perception of entire reality of billions of people, then you don't want them to have a frequency band of visual acuity that's going to see into those levels of frequency where the manipulation is really coming from. Because this global cult is just the vehicle within our reality to impose this agenda upon us. It's actually being orchestrated from the unseen, which is basically everything that exists to the human sight. So according to mainstream science, the band of frequency that we can see is fractional, because the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically our experienced reality, is said to be about 0.005% of what exists in the universe in terms of energy in its different forms. Some say as high as 0.5, but it's tiny, whichever. And visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, everything we see is within that band, is a fraction of the 0.005%. So humans are basically blind. The entirety of infinity exists outside of what we can see. And therefore, you're in a perfect position because you don't want human acuity to be so expanded that you're actually seeing your controllers. You want them here. And that's what how the biological computer body has been programmed to do that. It's not an accident. And so you are decoding visually only a tiny band of frequency. And what does that band of frequency relate to? Form. So I'm seeing lights, I'm seeing a computer, I'm seeing a desk, a walls, all of our form. They are energy that has gone into a vibration low enough, dense enough for it to appear in the decoded reality to be physical, to be dense physical. Everything else between the form to the human decoding system is empty space. I mean, that's what I'm looking around at. Most of this room is empty space, but it's not empty. It's just outside of that band of frequency that we can decode into a visual reality. And so when people talk about entities appearing out of nowhere, what they do is they appear out of the plasma field. They're plasma entities. and they can come into this reality by lowering their frequency, and then suddenly you see them. Oh, they came out of nowhere. No, they didn't. They entered your visual frequency band, and you could then see them, and they appear to come out of nowhere. And then they disappear. They don't disappear. They disappear from your frequency band of visual acuity. So this whole reality, this human reality, is founded on this plasma field. And the form is the electrical electromagnetic world that's been encoded into the plasma to convince us that we're somewhere we're not.
So I got a question about that. How culturally, like, what's the role of culture in that? Because, like, if you were living in the 1200s, like, if you're saying that if one person will change their consciousness and that will change the people around them, then that means that, like, culture is very changeable and mutable. But like, it seems to me like different cultures have different ways of perceiving reality. And some cultures will believe in demons and angels, and to other cultures, if you're going to a scientific culture, they're not going to believe in that at all, at least on the surface. So, like, is it kind of like a cultural specific thing, do you think? Or is it just more kind of just like a broadband, or being open to it? Or
well, it's actually deprogramming to the point where your cultural programming doesn't dictate your sense of reality. Give you an example. If you're born in Asia and India, you're almost certainly going to be a Hindu. Not because you've sat around and worked it out and come to that conclusion, because that's what you've been programmed from cradle to grave to believe from the earliest age when you came out the womb. If you're born in the southern states of America, you're likely going to be a Christian. If you're born in the Middle East, etc., you're likely to be a Muslim. And you know, if Muslims were turning into people born into Muslim families were turning into Christians, say, and Christian families were turning into Muslims, and Hindu families were turning into one or the other, then you'd see some kind of process in which people have concluded themselves what they want to believe. But that's not what you see overwhelmingly. You're born into a Muslim, Christian, Hindu family. Well, that's pretty much what you're going to be for life. And not only do you have the programming, you have the cultural pressure to conform. And so you've got all these different belief systems, but they have basically two choices they're giving you within the mainstream of life, if you like. One is that is basically the orthodox scientific orthodox scientific view that we are a cosmic accident, that we appeared out of some primeval soup and turned into Ethel on the checkout and Bill on the bus, and through the Big Bang, which is the most ludicrous thing you've ever heard in your life if you follow it through.